My name is Lee Smith, and I'm the current Vice Polemarch of the Brooklyn, Long Island Alumni Chapter of Kappa Psi Fraternity Incorporated. As part of our community service efforts, the Brooklyn, Long Island Alumni Chapter regularly hosts community events to educate our constituents on issues that affect us all. The pandemic has forced a lot of our efforts to virtual spaces, but the need to continue our education around community health is now more important than ever. Like with Black History Month, for Women's History Month, we wanted to continue including weekly virtual programming that allows us the opportunity to hear from experts from various professions from the comfort and safety of your homes. We have been celebrating all of the sororities in the Divine Nine this month with a theme of real talk, the women of the movement, lessons, legacy, and leadership. We conclude this month's events with the lovely ladies of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, who are celebrating their centennial year, 100 years of greater service, greater progress. They'll be celebrating big here in the notable Northeast region with a gala on May 21st at the Ziegfeld Ballroom in Manhattan at 141 West 54th Street, with the premium open bar, a delicious buffet, DJ Envy on the ones and twos, and a special performance by R&B great Eric Benet. We'll share that link for that event in the chat later. So pull up, get comfortable, and tune in for this final session in this series. Ask questions and engage in our chat feature as we honor these great women. And now over to your moderator for the evening, my brother, Kevin Boston Hill. Kevin?
Lee, thank you very much for that introduction. And once again, welcome to all of you to this final installment of our Women of the Movement, Lessons, Legacy, and Leadership as part of our webcast series. We brought you all of these for the month of March for Women's History Month as a way to honor all of those women, those sung heroes, as well as the unsung heroes who have made everything possible that we are able to enjoy. Please, as you also mentioned, we welcome you to enter your questions for these lovely young ladies as well, and as they express all of their different levels of expertise. We'll go ahead and get right into the introduction so that we can have a very fruitful and very fun conversation, and at the benefit of all of you who are watching on Facebook or on YouTube. First, in no particular order, Jennifer St Prue is a graduate of the School of Industrial and Labor Relations at Cornell University. She went on to become an educator at the John Bartram High School, teaching secondary mathematics in Philadelphia as a Teach for America Corps member. She went on to attend the University of Pittsburgh School of Law to pursue her law degree. Upon graduating, she became a public defender with the Legal Aid Society's Criminal Division practice in Queens County. She now works as the principal court attorney to the Honorable Acting Supreme Court Justice John F. Zoll, where she assists her judge with felony matters, including hearing and trials. As the social action chair for her chapter, Beta Psi Sigma Alumni Chapter of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority, Sora St. Prue is committed to serving the community she lives in and is particularly passionate about the youth and criminal justice. Moving on. Aretha Grant Fryer started her career in higher education that spans nearly 30 years, although she does not look it. She began working in academic advising, helping adult learners to complete associate's and bachelor's degrees at Regents College, an online and aggregate degree completion program. Over the last few years, her career redirected her work to traditional age students. Aretha is a proud Jersey girl hailing from Jersey City, New Jersey. Go Peacocks. She graduated from Trenton State College with a Bachelor of Arts degree in communication and a minor in Africana Studies. Upon moving to Albany, she was instrumental in forming the Theta Gamma Sigma Alumni Chapter, and she served as its chartering basilisk over that time. She believes in the slogan, greater service, greater progress, which is also the sorority's motto, and she has done these things throughout all of the offices that she holds. Taniqua Hunter is a disability advocate. She has worked in the field of vocational rehabilitation, helping people with disabilities with workforce development for over 20 years. These are some young looking women. Where you all sure you've been doing this as long as you have? Come on now. I think you're doctoring the numbers up a little bit. But she holds a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling from Hofstra University, the real HU for those of you who know. Taniqua is a certified rehabilitation counselor, and she has also worked for nonprofits and in municipal state government roles. She joined Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority as a solo in the spring of 1996 at Hofstra University, and has worked to become a charter member of the Nu Beta Sigma chapter in Queens. She currently serves as chapter parliamentarian and is a registered parliamentarian with the National Association of Parliamentarians. Dr. Kimberly Hardy earned her bachelor's degree from Morgan State University and her master's degree from The Ohio State University. And she's also a double HBCU graduate, earning her PhD in social work, again, from Morgan State University. Her professional experience includes working as an assistant professor of social work at Fayetteville State University, assistant professor of social work at the University of St. Joseph, and assistant professor of social work at the University of Connecticut. Some of the organizations that she is affiliated with are the Council on Social Work Education, Golden Key National Honor Society, Alpha Delta Mu National Social Work Honor Society, and the Society for Spirituality and Social Work. Camelia Anders began her child welfare career back in 1998 with the New York City Administration for Children's Services, or ACS, as a child protective specialist within the Division of Child Protection. Over the years, she ascended the ranks as a supervisor, staff trainer, director of field operations, and eventually assumed the role of program administrator for the Division of Child Protection with the DC Child and Family Services Agency. In 2010, she returned to New York City as an assistant commissioner and is currently the associate commissioner for policy, contracts, and monitoring within the Division of Policy, Planning, and Measurement at the New York City ACS. And in that role, she provides an infrastructure of support and resources through collaborative work and international divisions. Ladies, once again, welcome, welcome, welcome to all of you. And we hope that we have a very fruitful and robust conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and kick things off with our first question. Because you each have such distinguished careers, as was just mentioned in those bios. So what role, if any, did Sigma Gamma Rho play in helping you to get to where you are now? Do you think you would be in this same place if not for your membership? And any of you can start.
Hi, everyone. I'll jump in, and in an effort to be inclusive, I am a dark-skinned Black woman. I am wearing a gold jacket with the sorority shield on my blazer, a royal blue shirt, glasses, and pearl earrings. I have to be inclusive for the disability community. So for me, Sigma Gamma Rho was so instrumental in laying the groundwork for my professional development. Becoming a member as an undergraduate, I learned things like time management, how to get along with people, soft skills, hard skills, how to make flyers, how to do research, how to follow up. And those were early lessons that I learned as a young undergraduate, and it only developed even more in my career. It was laying that foundation for being able to work independently, specifically since I came in as a solo initiate, and just really being able to get things done. And I learned that through the power of sisterhood and being on different communities, being on different committees and working with SOARs and learning from different people. So for me, it really laid such a strong foundation to how I function as a professional.
All right, Sora Fryer.
Thank you. Good evening. So for me, I'm in the field of higher education, and I'd have to say that it was an easy leap into higher education from my undergraduate studies in communication, where I desired to be in the public sector. I really wanted to be the next Connie Chung. That's what I told myself when I went to undergrad. But going through my undergraduate studies and after graduating, I moved to Albany, and here I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. It was upon the advice of a soror, a younger soror, who was working at an institution of higher education, who told me of a position as an academic advisor. And I had given no thought at all to academic advising or higher ed. And so talking with her about it, about the opportunity, I put my hat in the ring, thinking it was something short-term that I would do. I became an academic advisor to non-traditional students, adults who were older than me, listening to these students who were mostly military, traveling place to place, collecting credits from every base they were at, and still striving to complete their degrees, but facing all these obstacles because there was nowhere they were going to land permanently. I learned about this degree program that Regents College offered, and I just became intrigued. It was a way to make sure that not only students in the military, but those who stopped out for any reason could complete their degree program. I myself had graduated and had intentions on going back to school, but couldn't see how I was going to do that. Listening to their stories, I was inspired, and I started going back to school. I started bouncing around as they did, school to school, collecting credits. And before I knew it, I had earned enough credits to complete my master's degree. But if it had not been for that one soror just giving me that little push, just dropping that little nugget into my spirit, I may have never have even considered the field of education, although my founders were educators. And then later, I started teaching at the college level, and I've not turned back since.
Excellent, excellent. Sora Anders?
For me, it really was the love and support of sorors that's kept me going in my career. I've told a story some years ago where I think I quit my job every single day. Didn't tell anybody, but every morning I'd wake up like, I'm not going in. This is it. Write my resignation and delete it. But it was always a soror that was there when I decided to take on a new position, a soror that would encourage me to take on that position. When I moved from New York City to Washington, D.C., it was a soror that drove with me all night to get there, to move into my place, to start a new position. It was another soror to help me drive back. I got the position in New York City. And it's sorors now that support me in when I have those struggles of being the only one in certain spaces or the only one pushing for a decision, helping me think through my thoughts clearly, set up my presentations properly, and really pushing me for places where I didn't think that I could go. So through that love, that support, that encouragement, if it wasn't for those sorors, I don't think I'd be where I am right now in that 24th year of doing this in child welfare. So it's very important to me to have the love of those sorors, because it's just like having a love of family, just to keep you going no matter what you're faced with. So I applaud those who are here and those who've encouraged me along the way in the workplace and out. I would not be where I am if it weren't for the love of sorors. And of course,
Thank you, thank you. Sora St Prue?
Sure. Two ways. The first way, practically, the way I got my job with Teach for America to be a teacher was because of the leadership role I had undertaken in my undergraduate chapter. At the time, Teach for America sort of did headhunting. So they looked for leaders on campuses. And one place that they looked at were leaders of sorority and fraternal organizations. At the time, I was the membership intake chair, anti-basilisk vice president of my chapter at Cornell University, an Ivy League institution. And so when I got that email, they said, we see that you are a leader in your chapter, and we think that you'd be a good fit for Teach for America. And that's exactly how I got that job specifically because I was in Sigma Gamma Rho, and I just want to echo my soror's initial thought, Soror Hunter, that because of what I learned as a leader in my undergraduate chapter, was able to translate that to being a teacher. The time management skills, the demand on your time, the expectation that you be excellent no matter what, really carried on very well into my job as a physician, into my job as a teacher. The second way was support. As Soror Andrews mentioned, when I did move to Philadelphia to become a teacher, I was overwhelmed. I was 21 teaching 16-year-olds. And I was like, who am I to tell you anything? Real talk, as the name of the program is. And I was teaching math. The last time I had seen a math textbook was in high school, my 11th grade year. So now I'm teaching them what I struggled with in high school. And it was a very, very difficult time in my life. And my mentor at the time told me, hey, why don't you got this job because of your sorority, maybe they can support you. And I was like, oh, I guess that's a good idea. So I reached out to the local Alumni chapter, and they embraced me with open arms. And I would not have made it out of Philly had it not been for those sorors in Philadelphia. I always give them kudos wherever I can to say the support that they gave me as a teacher, helping me clean up my classroom, helping me paint it, helping me with lesson planning, just making sure I was okay and sleeping. They just were always there for me, and I would not be here today were it not for them. So practically, yes, because of my resume, I was able to be where I am today. And then just the support of my sorors really, really, really helped me be where I am today.
Excellent, excellent. And as an educator myself, I definitely can feel your pain on that, on the sleepless nights and all the lesson planning and staying a chapter or two ahead of the students before you teach them what you need to teach them. But we know that this month is Women's History Month, although it should be celebrated 365 days of the year. So we choose this month to commemorate the contributions of famous women. But I want to focus on the unsung women right at this point. So who are some of the unsung women in your lives who have helped you along the way?
I guess I can take that one. For me, it's different pockets of women. So for being a mother, my own mother and my sisters, and my very close friends, for those moments where I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Is it keeping them alive enough? They're there to coach me through it and remind me of what I'm doing and how to do it and to keep it going. At work, there is a woman, I don't even know if she's watching this right now, but her name is Andrea Reed, and she currently works at a different agency. But I remember being in a borough office and seeing her for the first time. And she was one of the only women of color who was at the executive level in our central office at ACS. And she was amazing. She dressed amazingly. She spoke with such confidence. And just watching her along the way, it was my beacon that I was aiming for to emulate. So in my career, my child welfare career. So just seeing her and wanting to be her, I actually got the opportunity to work alongside her as a colleague. And that was just magnificent for me to have that opportunity. And when she left our agency, it left a big gap in the work that we were doing, but it was amazing to work with her and learn from her. So she's one of my unsung heroes in that way. And in sorority life, there's so many. But the ones that keep me going are the ones that reach out when they can just tell something's off, or they might need a little hand. They'll be right there to reach out to me when I need a little laugh. They're right there. So just to drop a few names really quickly, Tiffany, if you're listening, I love you. Thank you so much for all that you've done. My basilisk Kim, she's amazing. She keeps me confident in getting us ready and how we're moving forward. And of course, one of my very, very best friends since the age of 13, Soror Tanya Bobrin, who lives in Delaware now. She has been such a guide. She brought me to Sigma Gamma Rho. She has other members of Sigma Gamma Rho in her family who helped me and supported me and brought me into the fold. And I'm very grateful for them. So those different women. I hope others are singing their praises as much as I do, but they have been great to lead me in those different parts of me.
Thank you for that.
I'd like to go next. Someone I don't talk enough about is my dean. I came in 1990 and had a very traditional pledge process. And the person who brought me into the organization was actually a professional at my institution. And the lessons learned through the pledge process would be enough. But then she hired me as her office assistant. And while I thought she would be a little understanding about the, lack of sleep, or, just my need to have some extra time in doing things, she was very tough on me, even tougher than she was on some of her other office assistants, because she said, don't think that you have a privilege here. This is a job. You need to show up. You need to do your best. That's what we Sigma women do. And I've taken that lesson with me everywhere I've gone. And if she's listening, Sharon Brooks, thank you. Thank you very much.
Please, she just wanted to have you all to herself because you got some private sessions. That's what that was about.
I can go next on this one. So there's several. For sure, my mom, who is watching from above right now. My mom was amazing. She was 5'1" in stature, but enormous in grace and wisdom, and she was amazing. And she was a trailblazer. She was a federal agent with, at first, the Department of the Interior and then with the State Department, and wanted to be a federal agent for a long time, but she was a woman of color, and she didn't have a college degree. And so at the time that was just completely unheard of. And so she challenged the feds, sued the federal government for racial and gender discrimination, because she's like, I should be given the opportunity. It doesn't matter. These other things don't matter. And I remember very distinctly when they finally relented, like, oh, okay, well, but you have to go to California for this major training and you're going to be gone for like 2 months. Will your husband let you go? And she was like, let it. Where they do that, right? So she, she went. My dad was super supportive, and she wound up becoming a little teeny tiny, very large federal agent, to the point where when she wound up passing, she was a what they call a SAC, or a special agent in charge of the entire Eastern region for this U.S. State Department. Like, she had achieved really amazing things. And she used to say, I'm the only skirt at the table, because she was the only Black woman. She was the only woman. And so she used that position to recruit students from HBCUs who were coming out of college, who might want to have a career in the federal government, who might want to work for Interior or the State Department. And she said the biggest challenge was getting them for them to get the interview. She said, I'll get you the interview, but you got to get yourself the job. And so she opened doors and opportunities for other folks who wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that before. And then if they got the job, they lived with us for a few months so they could get on their feet. And so, from that, I really learned like the value of using the spaces that you occupy to bring other people into the fold, to never let anybody else's judgments of you based on race or gender or whatever be a deterrent to you pursuing something that you genuinely want to do. And that, what matters is what you can bring to a space. In terms of like getting through my day-to-day life as a mom, my very best friend in the world, Dr. Anika Spratley Burton, she had her kids before I had my kid. And so it was the same way as Sora Anders, like, am I doing this right? And she was like, girl, please. And I mean, all the stuff that you read in the magazines and the books is nothing compared to the wisdom of other mothers. And so she and I have been best friends since high school, but it's a different journey than motherhood one. And so she was wonderful for that. And then just sort of navigating my life in academia. I have a group that we call ourselves the Sister Circle, and those women are absolutely amazing. And, in the spirit of calling a sister's name, it's Dr. Denise McLean Davison, Dr. Rhoda Smith, Dr. Camille Quinn, Dr. Tanya Smith Bryce. I mean, these women I literally could just talk about them for hours and hours, but just know that good, bad, or otherwise, we are always there for each other, always supporting one another. And so because they're, I guess, sort of traditionally unsung, I am glad to sing their praises tonight. So thanks for the question.
Thank you. I think this whole idea is to give people their flowers while they're living. So that's why we do this. Who's next? Go ahead, jump on in there. Sort of St. Prue. You all are so polite. You waiting for me to call you in. I'm just go for it. Jump in. That's all. You step on each other. That's okay. That's why I'm here.
I have so many actually, but the one that sort of springs to mind right now is actually my current anti-basilisk, Sora Joanna Glaude. And the reason why I think she's an unsung hero is she is just so grounded. She's the person I reach out to so I'm the president of my chapter. I'm the basilisk of the chapter, and I'm a newer member to the chapter. And as much as I enjoy my leadership position, there's always just something going on. And sometimes I have to think about how I approach a problem. And she's my balance. She's my scale. She helps me when she brings me down if I'm feeling too high, and she brings me up if I'm feeling really low. I know when I speak to her, I come out, I'll be like, I'm so glad I spoke to her first before I did something crazy. And the thing that makes her my hero is that she has a lot going on. And I don't want to put her business out there, but despite all that she has to deal with, despite all of her burdens, she's still very optimistic and just happy to be able to serve Sigma in her capacity. And she puts her literally her best and her all into everything that she does. And I definitely admire her about that. And she's very modest. She's very humble. She does not go around telling everyone what she's done or what she's going through. But I know exactly what she does. And I'm always so admired by that and inspired by all she contributes to the chapter and to Sigma in general. So like I said, I have a lot. Like I mentioned in my first question, the sorors from Philly really held me down. Soror Tamika Malcolm, Soror Deandra Thompson, Soror Ebony Carter. They all really held me down. But the one I would think about right now is Soror Joanna Glaude.
Thank you. Soror Hunter, you're up.
So I was trying to run away from this question because I was hoping okay, other sorors will take it and we'll just move on to another question. Because, as everyone stated, it's so hard to think of, such valuable, important people in your life. But, to comply, first I want to think of my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother was Annie B. Gillians. She was from Mississippi. She was this tall, lanky, 6'1", chocolate Black woman. And she took no crap whatsoever, but she was the most loving woman, would give you the shirt off her back. And she worked in a very non-traditional industry. My great-grandmother, she was the building superintendent. Okay, so this was like a labor-intensive job, and Granny was just out there doing it. And I think of her often because I think of how, the prayers of your grandmothers and your ancestors still cover you to this day. And when I think about the inherent strength that I have sometimes, I'm like, it has to be in my genes. I'm like, there's just no other way. So I often think back to great Granny Annie. And like other sorors mentioned, there's so many sorors that lift up each other. And I know one in particular, there's so many, but just one in particular, Soror Martine Ford, who used to be Verdier at the time. She was a soror who I did not know was a soror. And we happened to live in the same building on the same floor. And everyone would walk up to me and say, "Oh my God, are you Martine's sister?" And I said, "Are you Martine's sister? I don't know Martine. I don't know this girl." And one day, who comes knocks on my door? She's like, "Oh, you must be the girl that they say look like me." We instantly hit it off, become the best of friends. I think I was a freshman, she was a junior. And she was like, I'm gonna take you underneath my wing. And I'm like, I don't really think I need that. She was like, you do need it. You need it, and I'm here. Long story short, had no idea she was affiliated in a sorority. She was a member of Sigma Gamma Rho, and she loved me just as a friend. And one thing that she taught me about sisterhood is that it does not matter if you have letters. It does not matter. Before I even showed interest, I was friends with her for over a year, had no desire to join a sorority. 365 days later, I'm like, I like you and I like your people. Let me in. So if it wasn't for Martine, I wouldn't be here today.
Okay, thank you, ladies, for that walk down memory lane and for giving the shout outs to your unsung heroes. I appreciate that. I'm sure our listeners and our viewers do as well. And to those viewers out there on Facebook or YouTube, please send in your questions, type them into the chat, and we'll definitely pass those questions along to these lovely ladies. Well, now what I want to do is I want to get into some of the individual questions. I'm going to target questions for specific women up here, but any of you feel free after the initial person has spoken, if you feel that you would like to chime in, feel free to do so as well. And so, Grant, I'm going to start with you, because as someone who works in higher education, you have supported traditional as well as non-traditional students. And in this COVID era, how would you advise people who may be looking to reinvent themselves or otherwise pivot to another career?
What a great question. And a lot of that has been going on since the pandemic. The first thing I would say to someone is that it's never too late to reinvent yourself. It's never too late to create that life that you want. So think about it. Really take some time and think about what kind of life you want. What plan of action are you willing to take? How many risks are you willing to take? Because it will involve some risk. And I would advise them that they need to be prepared to step out of their comfort zone, because it can be rocky. It can be scary. But if it's something you want, what's out there to stop you but you? I would advise them to expand their skills. Think about some classes that they might need in order to produce the results they want. I would tell them to construct a plan, really sit down and think about, now, how can I get from A to B to C to D? Talk to people. Talk to many people in the field that you want to go into, many people who have reached out and started their own businesses. Ask them what struggles they had, find out what obstacles they faced, and how they got through them. You may not be able to use the same strategies, but you might talk to different people about it. I'd also suggest, just really thinking a lot about what your limits are, where you limit yourself, and forcing yourself to not think in that box, think outside, step outside of it, and really go for it. Because now is the time.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody want to jump in there before we move on? Okay, so Anders, I'm going to come to you next, because in your position, usually when people hear of ACS or Child Protective Services, they have images of crying children being torn away from their families, and it's all negative. So please talk to us about the vast array of positive services that the Administration for Children's Services provides, including any outreach to schools or new parents that exist.
I love that question. Thank you so much for asking. I think anyone from ACS in a leadership position would love that question, because there's so many great things. For one, in the 24 years that I've been in ACS, we've evolved greatly in child welfare here in New York City, throughout the nation. Just to ground this a little bit for those who are watching, we get upwards of 64,000 calls per year, right? And those calls lead to what we call investigations. So where someone like yourselves or anyone who has a phone and say, I think there's something going on in this household or in my own household, and you should come and investigate. Out of those 64,000, less than 20% are actually indicated, meaning that we found some credible evidence to say that some act of abuse or neglect happened for this child with this family. And then there was someone who was legally responsible that we could hold them to that, to what we saw was an offense to that child. Out of that, I would say less than 10% of those actually result in a child being removed from their home, right? That's a very last resort. And even when we get to that point where we're making that decision, there's so many different steps and people involved in making that decision, it actually really happens. And out of that 10% that we actually do the removal, about 46%, getting close to 50% may go from one family member to another family member. So they're not in a stranger's home. They're not in a what we call our traditional foster parent home. They're in what we call our kinship homes, right? So it could be a cousin, a friend, a brother, a sister, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent. When ACS comes in and does investigations, we see two things happening. Most people who call because they're not sure and they just want us to come in. And we assess the home. We talk to the family. What are your needs? Most of these are actually service calls. So what we did in these past few years, nationally it's known as differential response. We call it CARES. We have a different pathway that does not involve an investigation, but actually a service and assessment type response for a family. We're asking the family, when can we come out? When can we talk with you? When can we partner with you? In 2019, right before the pandemic, we what we call a re-RFP. So we redid all the preventive service contracts throughout New York City and expanded evidence-based model services so that any family, no matter what neighborhood you lived in and no matter what borough, you were able to access high-level intervention services for your family to meet your needs. Some very expensive intervention models, but we're willing to put our money there to keep families whole. So that completely reduced the number of kids that are being removed from their homes. In 2010 and upwards, we started putting different programs in place, and we really focused on permanency. So those kids who are in foster care found permanent homes, regardless of their age. We recruit foster parents for teens, for 18-year-olds, for 20-year-olds, because they still need services too. Where were you when you were 20? You still needed your mother and your father and your sister and your brother, right? So our foster youth need that as well. We've also created homemaking services. So before, maybe back in 1988, you walk into a home that was cluttered and was dirty, you would say, this child can't stay here. We would remove. We don't do that anymore. We actually bring cleaning services into your home and clean your house for you, then give you the mental health support that you need so that you can get services so that we don't get in that space again. If we have parents who are differently abled, who need additional support, they can raise their children, so we'll give them the support that they need so they can raise healthy and happy families to the best of their abilities. It's not about us coming in and children crying. That really happens. And the very few times that I was involved in a removal, unfortunately, those kids were like, oh, you're here? Let's go. It's with jest I say it now, but it's a tough job, but there are a lot of good things that ACS does. We partner with our DOE because what we didn't want to happen during the pandemic were unnecessary calls coming into our state registry saying that because this child wasn't logging on or they had their camera off, there must be something going on. No, maybe there's a lot going on and the house is not clean and I don't want folks to see my bedroom or that I share my bedroom or I'm not dressed the way I want to dress that day. So camera may be off. So we educated our teachers, we educated our school system, we partnered with them, we created a set of rules for the steps that they would go through before they would call the registry if they truly felt there was an issue. We do a lot of community work. Whatever the needs of the community are, we partner with them. So that way we can support our community and break those cycles of neglect and abuse, because that does happen in some instances, so that those folks can learn different ways of disciplining their children. Because you have to break that cycle in order to do something different. If that's all you know, that's all you're going to do. So by learning something different and pushing forward on what those kids' needs are, we're able to break those cycles in the community. And ACS does have a different light than what it had in the past. Does the press always pick that up? No, but that's okay. We have a really good press department so they can learn about what we do and how we do it well.
And I asked that question because I've had direct experience with the good sides of things. Having been an administrator within the DOE, I've had several families where we turned them in the direction of ACS just for the sole purpose of getting those skills, of getting those resources. Because we all know, all of you, I'm sure all of you can tell us, can co-sign on this, but parenthood is not easy. And so you take the help from wherever side you can get it. And a lot of our parents were, of course, single parent households in the Bronx, worked in Morrisania, which is the poorest congressional district in the country. And so they needed support. That's what they were at their wits' end. They didn't know what to do. And so we turned them in the direction of the ACS workers in the neighborhood who were there to give that support and turn them in the direction of where they can get resources that will help them out. And those ladies, those families sing your praises every day. They say, well, they helped me out with this and they helped me out with that. And they come back to the school all the time and talk about all the great things that they were able to get because of the resources they got from ACS. So
absolutely. And we continue to evolve. And when we want community voice, we want family voice and choice. We want them to come in and let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what more services they are in need of. And we front end that. We make sure that we secure those funds to give the families what they need so they can be better. And you don't have to be from a single parent household or from a particular neighborhood. Everyone is a phone call away from an investigation, to be honest with you. And some don't get called in. So we're also dealing with the bias that happens with calls that are coming in, better educating our mandated reporters and even the community with different ads and so forth. But it's a great position to be in. It's a great agency to work for. Tough work, but work that's needed.
Great. Thank you. Thank you again for doing that work. And it takes a special person, just like it takes a special person to be a teacher. It takes a very special person to do what you do. So thank you for doing that again. Moving on, again, talking about how it takes a special person to do something. Dr. Hardy, you are a proud double HBCU graduate, as we mentioned before, having gotten your undergraduate and doctoral degrees from Morgan State. And of course, you are extremely well respected in the world of social work. So given the current climate, what do you see as some of the challenges that social workers, present and future, will face, and how should we prepare our future social workers through the current training programs?
Well, let's see. Man, that is big. That is huge. So, well, all social work students who are in undergraduate or master's level programs have to do what the rest of the world calls an internship. We call it a field placement. And so they do get hands-on direct practice with the applying the theory from the classroom with actual clients and agencies in the community. And so it's good that they have that opportunity. But it's probably necessary, and they'd be very mad to hear me say this, to increase those numbers of hours so that they can get just that much more experience, because usually they'll have a field placement for 1 year and it'll be in one agency. As opposed, I though think, because I know at Ohio State, I was in the advanced standing program, which means I went through the MSW program in a year. So I only had one field placement, but in some places they'll do 2 years of field. So they get 2 different placements. They get a little bit more exposure to a different set of agencies and the issues and challenges that are sort of part and parcel of being with those agencies. So I think that would be very helpful for students, is to get a little bit more of the required hands-on practical work. But I think in terms of the challenges they're going to find, so when I was in practice, I was a school social worker. And so right now, I'm the mother of a 9th grader who has, who spent the last half of 7th grade and all of 8th grade in a virtual environment. And the the challenges of that won't be seen for a long time, like the full weight of those. We're obviously seeing some of it now. A lot of students who are suffering not just from academic deficits, but also social emotional challenges. I think, I know that what we did as a society was in the best interest of the children, the teachers, the staff, and supplemental instructing folks in the school building and then school bus. And I don't begrudge us that at all, but I don't know that we realized we'd have to do it for as long as we did, or what the impact of that would be. And so, we're not going to see the full weight of that year and a half for a while now. We're going to be playing catch up for a while around that. And so social workers are going to have to help out a lot. As a matter of fact, I remember a dear friend of mine in Soror Cherie Zachary, who is a supervisor with Child and Family Services here in Fayetteville. She's also at MSW, and the first thing we heard when they said we were locking down schools, the first thing we thought was, oh my God, the incidence of child abuse is going to go up. And unfortunately it did. And the school social workers were having a really difficult time getting to their client because, nobody could go out. So I think there was just a lot, there's so much we're just not going to be able to really capture after that year and a half of online in a lot of different ways. Some of the other challenges are things that we kind of knew, but the pandemic really exacerbated. I think people who were already living in poverty it's a lot worse now because there are some folks, some jobs never came back. Some jobs were, they had really good paying jobs, and now those salaries have come down. I mean, people who are struggling to make ends meet, we knew we needed to expand healthcare, for example, to working families who were like in that weird Venn diagram of you make too much for this and not enough for that. And so they one sickness away from medical issues that could financially ruin them. So we knew those things existed. I think now it's been highlighted, and other families who were on the verge of going into that space have sunk into that space. So social workers need to be very proactive in this work going forward. It can't even just be that we receive a client and then do something to help the client. I think we have to be very proactive, which is what I teach my community org students is you need to go out into communities and do assessments. Just blanket the whole place like Jane Addams and her colleagues did with the whole house maps. Let's knock on every door. Let's find out every need and then put those resources into place. Think about the kids who only got meals because they went to school. And so when we were online, parents had to find a way in the middle of the day to go to the school and pick up the lunches. And sometimes the school buses would go to a neighborhood central location and the kids had to get there. Like that's just been made worse. Kids who used to do the backpack programs on Fridays, where the schools would fill the backpacks with food for them for the weekend, those programs ended. And so lots of resources went away as a result of that. And we need to be very proactive about going out and knocking doors and finding out who in the community needs what. And I would love to see more students doing that kind of direct practice work rather than just agency-based work where we receive clients and meet that need. So that's kind of the work that I do with my students in my classrooms is, really make sure that they understand that your GPA is irrelevant to people who are in need. And so I swear to God, so sick of hearing about GPAs. We're 5 weeks away from the end of the semester. And would you have extra credit? Honey, I built in all the points you needed to pass all semester long. We're too late now, right? But at the end of the day, if you really want to do something extra, what I do in my classes is they bring in non-perishable food items that we donate to the food bank. Or actually we've adopted an elementary school and we take it right to their school social worker who keeps a clothing closet and a food pantry in her office for the students who have direct needs and stuff. So, I think some of the biggest challenges is just reminding them that there's community level need. It's not all just clinical. It's not all just private practice work, like a lot of them have been sort of aiming toward. A lot of this is being in the community where mental health is a challenge for a lot of people living here, and the economic burdens are a challenge for the whole community. And how can we do things to help them proactively? So I hope I answered your question, Phil.
Oh no, you answered it lovely, because because I heard a lot of similarities between how social workers need to be trained with how teachers should be trained as well, because it's not just about the theory. It's not just about what you learn inside those books. It's about the practical application of that theory that isn't done enough, because you get a lot of teachers who come out of these programs and they may have the 4.0s or they'll have the highest GPAs, but when they get in front of a class of 30 Black and brown kids, they don't know what to do.
Right. Absolutely.
So I think I'm glad you were able to, and I kind of figured that would be the direction you were going to go with your response, but I want everybody else to hear that as well, that we need to provide more in the way of those practical opportunities for our future social workers and teachers as well, so that they'll know, put your fingers on the pulse of what's going on. And don't worry so much about getting your GPA up. Think about how you're going to better yourself personally to be prepared for that next job that you get. So keeping things in line with I actually just lost myself for a second. Okay, keeping things in line with, again, working with the people out there. So Hunter, I want to talk to you a little bit, because I appreciated how you introduced yourself as far as making sure that anybody with some type of impairment would be able to take part in our conversation as well. So thank you for doing that. And as a rehabilitation counselor, of course, you know that you support people with different disabilities and others with obtaining jobs and or returning to the workforce. So since we are all pretty much just one accident or unfortunate circumstance away from being afflicted with some kind of disability, is there anything that we or our families should be aware of to help prepare for such a situation? Or can we prepare for such a situation?
That was such a unique and poignant question. When I heard it, I said, wow, this is pretty interesting. So, Voc Rehab, we are in the business of helping people go back to work who either are disabled or become disabled. And I think a lot of times people don't realize, just like you said, it could be an accident. Anything could happen. And you know what? This population, we age. People don't realize at some point our hearing may go, our vision might go, God forbid you have a stroke, anything of that nature. And we don't think about the fact that we may not be able-bodied forever. So Voc Rehab, just like you said, we work with students and adults who are looking to become employed. So when you have students who are in school and they graduate from special education and they have those 504 plans or they have those IEPs, they go to Voc Rehab to help them become more independent. Or let's say you have that undiagnosed adult who never got any support, never got any services, but we don't know why this person can't maintain employment. It might be disability related. So in terms of your question of what could you do, I'd say, you really can't prepare to have an accident, right? We can't prepare when these unforeseen circumstances happen in life. But I will say, if and God forbid, should something does happen, to educate yourself on just some basics of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I think we don't talk enough about the ADA across many professions because it touches almost everything. Whether you're in school, whether you're an employer, it does not matter. The ADA covers things from discrimination against employment, just use of public services, use of federal dollars, even things like we want today on Zoom, just having access to the internet and being able to access websites with web accessibility. All of that is covered by the ADA. And it's a simple civil rights law that people kind of don't know about. And it's only been around since 1990. So the first thing I say to people is just kind of be familiar with the ADA. particularly if you have a young person with a disability who's exiting school. All of those services that were guaranteed under IDEA, Individual Disability Education Act, as the ADA now covers that because it's no longer entitlement. So as an adult, whether you yourself or someone you know might have disability related issues, know at least at the bare minimum about the ADA. And I will also say, should you become disabled in some fashion, that's really when you begin to take action. That's when you need to seek out different community resources that's going to help you either address that disability, cope with it, whether you need counseling or just adjustment, or maybe it's medical care that you need related to that new diagnosis. And I feel like our communities, it's the Black and Brown communities, we're the community that need these services and support. But we always say we don't want to be labeled, we don't want to be stigmatized, and we don't want to disclose. And I dare say there are other communities, they do the exact opposite and they get everything they need to be well adjusted. So I'm very just open and happy to talk about Voc Rehab and just all disability related content, because it's so important, because at some point in your life it will affect you, and 1 in 5 people have a disability. So if not you, a loved one, a friend, it's here, and we need to be as inclusive to that population as anything else.
And I think it's really important for our families out there to hear this message, because we tend to shy away from, at least from the K-12 perspective, we shy away from getting services for our children because of the stigma that is going to be attached to them. But those are things that help to level the playing field for them. And then you have those families that now that their students are about to graduate from high school, they're like, okay, what now? They just spent the last however many years receiving these services to help them along in school, but now they're about to go off to college, or they're about to go off into the workforce. And are they going to still be able to get those same services to help them along? Families just don't know that, yes, they're still entitled to them and how to get. And those of us who work in higher ed, we're always getting those letters from the ADA department that says such and such student has these services and this student has these services. We have to make those accommodations and things. So it is true. Yes, they get them if they're entitled to them, they receive those services even in college at the higher education level, and they can even use them or learn how to get services in whatever profession that they're going to go into as well. I think it's important to get that information out there.
I agree. Get those reasonable accommodations. They make a difference.
Can I add a thing to that? Because, we have a lot of students at my university who are, because I'm teaching social work students, they all think, well, I shouldn't have to ask for help. I'm training to be a helper. And I'm like, well, then you're in the best position to say, listen, I, took advantage of the resources that were available to me. So, and you don't think anything's crazy with me, right? And so if I can do it, you can do it. But I have so many students who will come in my office and they will be so overwhelmed and they'll be in tears. And I ask them, like, well, have you talked to what we call the Center for Personal Development? And, they'll say, well, no, and I just didn't want to do that, or for any number of reasons, stigma, burden, whatever, maybe us thinking that they're not qualified to be here because they need extra help. And so here are people who are training to be helpers who themselves need the support and are sort of ashamed to go and get it. And so I wish we would really normalize taking advantage of the resources you are entitled to with your IEP, the same way we do the tutoring center or the writing center. Right? And so if you merit extra time on an exam, then get that, but a lot of faculty members, even if we know there might be something, they won't do anything if you give any accommodation unless the student has this documented diagnosis and stuff. So if anyone is out there listening, what we're saying is so important. Please go and talk to whatever office it is on your campus that will help you, because your professors, we don't look at you any different. It's just, we need to know that we got to set up a certain thing for you on this exam, and that is not a problem for us. But if you're entitled to it, take it, because you're right, Soror Hunter. Some folks know exactly what they're entitled to, and they get all that the getting can give. So.
Absolutely. And just to really quickly to piggyback on what you said, it is so important to know your rights and your responsibility, because disclosure is a really big issue when it comes to receiving certain services. And if you are a person with a disability, especially regarding employment and reasonable accommodations, you have to disclose not the disability, what it is, but you have to disclose that you have a disability and the limitations and what might be a good recommendation to compensate for that disability, for the limitations, to get the reasonable accommodations. They can't just read your mind. Even if they assume, they can't assume, but you have to verbally say, I need assistance with this task and I need this in order to do this job. And that's how you get what you need. But this is why we're here, right? To tell people so that they could advocate for themselves.
Exactly. Thank you all again for that. And Soror St Prue, before I get to you, I want to remind all of our viewers out there, please submit your questions to these lovely ladies. I'm sure they'll be able to respond to them in kind. So keep sending those questions in. And we do have a few questions that we're going to get to in a moment, but I do want to ask Soror St Prue, I want to ask you this question, because we know that you clearly have a passion for youth as well as the criminal justice. And being that you are a resident on Long Island, I know that you are aware of organizations like MS-13 and the like. So even though our organizations have auxiliaries where we work directly with the youth, talk to us about what we need to do to keep our youth away from those organizations and become more productive citizens.
Sure, that question is a doozy. When I give you my answer, please know my answers are informed by the fact that I used to be a high school teacher in Philadelphia, which didn't have an MS-13 problem, but did have a sort of gang problem. I'm also coming to you as someone who used to be a criminal defense attorney, a public defender. So I represented indigent people who couldn't afford an attorney. And now I work as a court attorney, right? So I work for the courts, helping dispense justice, as they like to call it. And so understand that those are my perspectives when I give you what I think might be the 4 crucial points as to in hopes to sort of halfway answer your question. First, it really does take a village. Family is key. And when I say family, it's not just the mother or the father or the sister, it's a cousin, it's your neighbor, it's your school, it's your counselor. It might even be the person who's watching your door. I remember in high school, watching the school doors. I remember in high school, the security guard at our high school knew my name. And if I was absent, next day, hey, is everything okay? It's this idea that I find that youth that are involved in these organizations just want to belong and want someone who feels like they're checking in on them, right? So if they're not getting that from their family or from school, they're going to go and find it somewhere. And that's what these organizations do provide. So it really does take a village. And so I implore anyone, before you even get into this idea that I'm going to join something like MS-13, what is your family structure? What is that there that can help give you that support so that the youth never has to make that decision or feel like he or she or they have to make that decision. But let's say you joined, you're in it, and you got caught. Know your rights. Know your rights. If you're ever in a position where you got arrested or you're talking to a detective, ask for a parent. Ask for an adult to be there with you before you say anything. The most that they can ask of you is your name and your address, what they call pedigree information, stuff that identifies you. But the minute you start talking about friends that you know, your social media profile, anything like that, it's a wrap. So just the only words that are coming out of your mouth should be, I need my parent here with me. I need my mother here with me. I need my father here with me. That's the only thing. It's the equivalent of saying, I need my attorney. Don't say anything. Those should be the only words coming out of your mouth, no matter what they say to you. Oh, well, if you were innocent or if you didn't do anything wrong, you just tell me. Oh, I need my mother here. I'll tell the truth when my mom's here. I'll tell the truth when my father's here. The third thing is be honest with your attorney. This is not the time to start justifying what you did. This is not the time to come up with a plausible story. Just tell me what happened. Tell your attorney what happened. We work better with actual facts and truths than what you think I want to hear, or what you think the detective wants to hear, or what you think the judge wants to hear. No, just be honest. Because when I find out later on that it was actually X and you told me Y, Z is what's occurring. It's not ever going to add up. And then the last thing I would say is TV is not real. I don't care if you watch reality TV, Law and Order, How to Get Away with Murder. It's all fake. It's not real.
Academy Awards.
The Academy Award. It's not real. People tell. You think so-and-so had your back until you're in the room by yourself with your attorney, the detective's telling you sitting there going, I'll help you, but you got to tell me X, Y, and you won't go to jail. Guess what? 90% of the time, they're going to start telling you your government name. So it's no longer, yeah, I only know him as Tay. It's no, his name is Kevin Boston Hill, and he lives at 90 Franklin Street in Valley Stream, New York. It's just not real. Don't think that they're going to have your back, that they're going to break you out of prison. I don't know what the narrative is. I don't know how many clients when I used to be a defender would have, like, I don't know what narrative they created in their mind about how this is going to play out, but it doesn't play out that way. It just doesn't. So don't watch TV, listen to songs or whatever it is, and think that what's happening there is what's going to happen when it actually happens. Or if you join MS-13 or whatever organization or crew you want to join, that's how it's going to play out. No, 95% of the time, most of the time, it's actually a very tragic story for both the person who's involved, whether they end up being injured or dead, and then the person who ended up committing the crime is just as tragic for them. I do like to think that the criminal justice system provides some sort of leniency for our youth, but it doesn't. And you end up paying for the rest of your life for a decision you made when you were young. And yes, when you're young, you're not developed. You make decisions that are impulsive. We know that. It's scientific. But our criminal justice system, I would argue, isn't ever going to truly acknowledge and accommodate for that. So that one mistake that you made when you were 15 and 16 because you're impulsive really does stay with you for the rest of your life. And so that's why I say start off with their village. If you have an issue, talk to your parents, talk to your guidance counselor, talk to a school counselor, talk to the pastor, talk to your youth ministry, talk to anybody else. But if that's not the case, those other three should help you halfway through your situation.
Thank you. And just for the record, I do not live in Valley Stream. So anybody who's watching out there trying to look for me, you won't find me there. And I never went by the name Tay. So just putting it out there, but to clarify all those things. But thank you for that. And again, in my experiences as a school administrator, I would often tell students the exact same thing. Like, don't tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me what happened. Let me make up my own mind as far as how I'm going to deal with things. Because, there's always three sides to every story, right? There's person A, person B, and then somewhere in the middle, there's the truth. And so and that's what we try to get at. We're just trying to get at the truth of the matter because, and again, as parents, you tell your children, tell me the truth now, because if I find out the truth later, it's going to be much worse. So the same thing holds true in our justice system. So thank you for that. Here's a question from our viewers, and I'm going to throw this out there, and any of you can have at it, all of you can have at it. Basically, want to get your feelings on what was going through your mind as you were watching the Senate confirmation hearings, and how do you think that impacts the next generation of female leaders?
For me, it was
Okay.
a sense of pride. Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
It was a sense of pride. It was amazing to watch. It was beautiful to hear her responses. I think for me, hearing some of the questions that were being asked, it was almost expected. I mean, you have to think about it in this way. They have to do something, right, for their constituency. It was almost like they were playing to their base for certain parts of, just, it was a show, right? Just now Soror, you said it wasn't real. It wasn't real. It just wasn't real. But it was beautiful to see the grace that she gave them with some of the questions that were asked. I also, for me, it struck a nerve that I know she was holding back. I know that she had to have some restraint. And then I think online, when you saw the comparison to her and others who've been in that position and their reactions to certain questions and so forth that have been asked, and the amount of restraint, that it was just like, wow, it's 2022 and we're still having to hold back. We're still having to afford others grace that they would never give us. We're still in a position to where we have to over qualify and over justify our existence in many spaces that we can come in there and school everybody. And it's 2022. So as much as I was proud and I was happy and I felt great, and I was like, this is just gonna be beautiful. I told my daughter to come look at this woman who looks like us, and look how great it's gonna be. I also had the feeling of reality of, I can't believe that it's 2022. We're still having this conversation. The one good thing about being of a family that is from another country is that we've always had female leaders in power for many, many years. The US tends to be a little bit behind on that. I love the United States, but we're a little bit behind on that. And having a female vice president is new to us. Having a Black female justice is new to us. And when you're looking at other countries, they're light years ahead in that. But I feel like we're finally catching up. And the normative practices everywhere else can finally be something normal in a land that I live in. And that feels good to me. But still yet somewhat disappointed that it's 2022 and we're still having to hold back and offer grace that we would not get. But again, I'll go with the positive, right? For the social workers out there, and Soror Hardy, Dr. Hardy, for you. It was good to see her sitting there. And it's going to be even greater to see when she takes that oath and puts on that robe and sits where she rightfully belongs. So I'll leave that.
Thank you. Dr. Hardy?
No, I have nothing to add to that. I mean, I have nothing to add. Everything, what she said. It was amazing. I will say, though, there was this one scene, there's one picture that's going around the web where you could see her daughter looking at her. And that moment even more, because there's also the memes of all the different faces she made that every Black woman knew exactly what her face. I love that one. But the way her daughter looked at her, I mean, and yes, you're so right, Soror Andrews. I'm positive, strength, space, everything. But just for a moment, think about how many daughters have never been able to look at their mothers in that type of moment. Not Supreme Court necessarily, but just in whatever that moment is, because of gender discrimination, for racial discrimination, for people's, ignorance. There's a whole generation of girls for whom some of us are the ones that they can look at now in that way, in that sort of reverential way, because their mothers did everything they could to get them to the point where they could see in us, right? And because they didn't get to do that thing, to sit in that seat in that way. And so, so many people saw that and said, this is why, right? This is why we do what we do and we push through all of the obstacles is because of that look on that young lady's face. And I mean, it's just amazing. Malia and Sasha got to see it with their family. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, it's a shame that we could name the names of the ones who got to, you know what I'm saying? But like you said, Surrounders, I think we may be at the point where we're finally realizing that we're going to step into these spaces, whether they like it or not. We're going to engage with their ignorant questions and whether they like it or not, and we're going to excel, because every little girl deserves to look at her mom in that light, and then to be the one looked at in that light. So it was a proud moment. It's a frustrating moment, you know, for all the right reasons you said before. But yeah, that moment is what it was all about.
Kevin, I'm sorry, I have to jump in because
Please do.
I also too one day hope to be a judge, and so she, you know, was just very much the way her daughter was looking at her, I was looking at her too. But I it struck me as well that she was, I think about what Senator Cory Booker said to her, that she's more than her race and her gender. And I think we forget that as Black women, that we're more than just a woman. Like, womanhood and Blackness does not define us, right? And so, you know, a lot of people were saying, well, the reason she's even there is because of affirmative action, i.e. it's because she's Black, as opposed to the fact that she's qualified. And I would say overqualified. I mean, just myself as an attorney, I saw her qualifications. I mean, 40 of the people appointed to SCOTUS had never even been attorneys. 18 of them never completed law school. 47 of them never even attended law school. I mean, these are who's deciding or interpreting our laws that we have to abide by, right? So she's more than qualified. And she's actually been confirmed by the Senate on 3 separate occasions, for the U.S. Sentencing Commission, as a district court judge, and as an appellate judge. So her getting confirmed for SCOTUS is a given. But it's just the fact that despite those qualifications, despite those overqualifications, she's still being categorized as someone who's Black or someone who's a woman, and that's why she's being considered for the position. And I wish we didn't always have to fight against that narrative, that the reason why I'm in whatever position I'm in, whatever position I deserve to be in, it's because I'm a woman or because I'm Black, as opposed to how qualified I am. So a lot of that conversation that took place around her, I felt and was very related to, because the same thing happened to me when I was in high school. When I got into Cornell University, an Ivy League institution, my classmates said to me, the only reason you got in was because you're Black, not because I graduated in the top 15 of my class, not because I had the grades, not because I was a well-rounded student, not because I actually deserved to be at Cornell University. No, it was because I was Black, and that was pigeonholing me in a space that was not warranted. And so to see that happen to Supreme Court Justice Brown Jackson is just so, like Sora Anders said, it's 2022. In the 232-year existence of SCOTUS, there's never been a Black female on SCOTUS. And so while it's monumental and historical what she's doing, we are more than our race and our gender. We are who we are. And that's what I really took out of those confirmation hearings.
I just want to add a little piece about the last part of your question, Kevin. I echo my soror's sense of great and immense pride as I sat there and watched. But I run a program for academically disadvantaged students. And so I meet with them quite often, and they are a mix of both male and female, all different cultures, all different backgrounds. And so we talk about things that are going on in today's world. And to hear our young people come together to talk about what was happening as they watched the Senate hearings, I had to say that I had pride, a great sense of pride, but also hope. I heard from these young people that she deserves it. Yes, we would stand up with her too. And these were boys, white boys, Black boys, green-haired girls, all of which were just standing there beaming with pride saying, it's about time. It's about time. This is what we've been fighting for. And that just left me with a great sense of hope for our future.
Thank you. Thank you. So I know we've been talking for a while now, and it seems like it's almost unbelievable that we've been doing this for almost an hour and a half, but I'm sure we could go on and on for the evening. But what I would like to get into now is kind of branching off of that last question is talk to us a little bit about, from your perspective, how, and this is for all of you, how has the D9, the Divine Nine, kind of influenced the changes within our country, or has it influenced the changes in our country since the civil rights movement? I know it's a loaded question, it's a charged question, but are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? I mean, again, real talk. Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing?
For me, yeah, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, in the sense that we're doing service. We are in the community. We are mentoring young people. We are donating our time and our money to certain causes for the uplift of people in the community. Can we do more? Absolutely. I do feel that we could do more. I don't want to discredit what we do though. I think it is important to acknowledge our efforts, because it is important. But can we do more? Absolutely. Can we band together? Can we pick up causes? Can we become more vocal? Can we get more people registered to vote? Can we get more kids in better educational circumstances? Absolutely. We could do all those things and more if we really focus. I love Greek life. It has been a blessing to me personally, professionally. And don't get me wrong, there's a time and place for everything. There's a time to stroll. There's a time to step. There's a time to do it all. I really do feel that. So I don't want to knock anyone who's enjoying that, because you should. That's a part of the experience. But there are also times where you need to buckle down and see the needs of your community and rise to the occasion. So I definitely feel that we could do more. And I definitely feel that our leadership could be more progressive, and that our leaders and that our members would, charge our leaders and charge ourselves to be more engaged. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
I'd like to add that I think as a collective, of course, we could do more, like Sorority has said. But as individuals, we do a lot, right? Just think about the positions that you're in. You, Kevin Boston Hill, I voted for you. So I know you're doing great things in that library around the corner, right? Keep it up. He's also a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. Great. But as an individual, he's doing great things in the community that he and I live in, right? Soror Hunter, you're doing great things for the community of those who are disabled, right? But you're also a member of Sigma Gamma Rho. And I can go on and list all the names. Greek life, we're everywhere. I know when you work in city government, it's kind of frowned upon to walk around with letters on, only because you don't want it to come across as being selective, right? And causing like any type of favor to someone over the other. So most people don't walk around with their letters on, but if you come in my office, I have a pretty great poodle collection. I remember one of the interns said to me, "You really like dogs?" And I'm like, "Of course, no, I don't. No animals live in my house." And then I forgot that all the poodles are all around and they didn't know what that meant. So we're everywhere. We are everywhere. And as individuals, we make a big difference in government, in law, and everywhere. We make a big difference. Can we do more as a collective? Yes. Can we put our shields on it? Yes. Can we put it and flaunt it? Yes. But as individuals, we have a major impact and have always had a major impact on our communities. And we continue to do so. So I just want to add that part that, yes, all the other things, but if people go, well, they're just a bunch of gangs, I'm not going to join them, this, that, and the other. But if you think about the person you're talking to, who your boss is, who your mentor is, you're kind of already in that game. So you might as well just join. Right? Because we're making a difference everywhere. So I'll just put that in the room just to Don't walk away feeling, oh my goodness, we need to do more and put that banner up. We're doing a lot.
Yeah.
A lot, individual and as a collective. We're getting a lot done in this community. And we don't always get the credit for it, but we're getting there. Keep up the good work at the library.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else want to chime in really quickly before we begin our wrap up? Okay, so to wrap up, and it's no secret. I mean, I think it was even mentioned at the outset of this conversation that this year your illustrious organization is celebrating 100 years of service. So thank you for all that you have done and everyone that has come through your organization. So what can you tell us about the goals that your organization have, that Sigma Gamma Rho has for its centennial year? Anybody can jump in, because I don't know. So I can't state those things. And anybody going back to Indiana to celebrate.
Okay, what I can say is we're going to keep doing everything that we've always done, but we're going to do it greater. And so, that just be on the lookout. This is an amazing year. We've already done amazing things in this centennial year. We've given out millions of dollars to very worthy causes, the March of Dimes and others. I mean, our international grand ambassador, so our national president, she's gone all over the country. It's like a whole big bus and tour that they're doing around the country in various places. They're stopping and doing amazing service projects and community engagement. And she's been a wonderful representative and ambassador for the sorority, particularly with this being, I'm so jealous that she gets to be IGB and we start 100. That's amazing. And so, and it's going so well. We have a very robust relationship with Butler. And I actually was on a planning committee where we were going to figure out how to do things like have curriculum that focuses on the founders of the organization. And that was going to be something delivered at the university. Like, there's all sorts of amazing things that we are planning for this year, that we've already done for this year. And we're just going to continue all of the amazing work that we do, and we're going to do it greater.
What I like about the direction that the sorority is going in is, yes, we are celebrating centennial, but we're already thinking beyond centennial. We're already thinking about beyond 100. And what I am so happy about is the emphasis on membership training and training development. And I think that's so important because it translates so well in other facets of our life, right? Yes, it helps with leading a chapter, but it also helps when you're applying for a job. You know what kind of leadership style you have. You know how you work with others. You know what it feels like to work in a team. You know what it feels like to work independently. So there's so many ways that the emphasis on membership development and training is being focused on now that will help us and our organization moving forward. The other thing that I really, really am proud of in the direction that Sigma Gamma Rho is taking is sort of taking on that spirit of working in the face of adversity that our founders did when this organization was founded, and that they're doing it this time around through the legislative kitchen cabinet. So Sigma Gamma Rho has identified several topics, several issues that we can lobby behind on a federal, local, and state level. That's crucial. That's crucial because it impacts all of us, whether we live in a city, village, state, town, or just within the United States. Things like canceling student debt, things like maternal health care, things like criminal justice reform. These are all things that Sigma Gamma Rho is putting their really sort of leaning in on. And once we all sort of get behind that and rally behind it, our political power we already have the platform, right? So let's really do something with that platform. And that's what I'm really excited about. Yes, for this year, but moving forward. And obviously that excites me. That's my passion because I'm an attorney. But I think it really translates across the board.
Definitely. Thank you. And it can't be stated enough when you talk about the adversity that your founders went through to found the organization. We get again, let's talk about what was the society like and where they were. Indiana was at the turn of the century, that was Klan territory. So we basically came together. I mean, your organization was at Butler, mine was at Indiana University. So we basically had to stick together for safety reasons, not just academic reasons. So that was, I mean, you don't get much more adversity than running for your life every day. So that type of adversity kind of really just strengthens the resolve of the membership, and that kind of stays with you, and it's ingrained in the lineage. And so every person who comes through our respective organizations feels that, and you embody that. And so going into your next century, I'm sure that we have some even greater things to look forward to than all the great things that you all have already done. So just sending a little Indiana love your way to wish you all a very fruitful centennial celebration. And for those of you, again, who are out there watching this on Facebook or on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. I would like to turn things back over to our Vice Polemarch, Lee Smith, to wrap things up. Once again, my name is Kevin Boston Hill, and thank you all again for tuning in to this latest edition of our webcast series dealing with the Women of the Divine Nine.
Thank you, Brother Boston Hill, for moderating this evening. And thank you to the ladies of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. Thank you so much for that. I was listening in, and one of the very poignant points that Soror Anders said was about, making an impact, as a collective, yes, but as individuals, we are also doing the work. And so, you're encountering individuals who are part of these organizations, and we don't want to, make anyone who's not a part of, fraternities and sororities feel like they're not, great, or that they can't be just as great. The issue is that we just have a platform through these organizations to make a greater impact as a collective, but we're also doing it individually. So thank you again. And like I said, thank you to the lovely ladies of Sigma Gamma Rho, and thanks to all the ladies of the D9 sororities who, while elevated through their sisterhood as individuals, are impacting the communities they serve and live in on a daily basis. And so for that, we applaud you. Remember to come out and celebrate with these lovely ladies. They'll be here in the notable Northeastern region with their gala on May 21st at the Ziegfeld Ballroom in Manhattan at 141 West 54th Street, with a premium open bar, delicious buffet, DJ Envy on the ones and twos, and a special performance by R&B great Eric Benet. The link is in the chat on both our YouTube channels and our Facebook live channel as well. So as Brother Boston Hill said, this concludes our events for Women's History Month, but be sure to stay tuned to this space hosted by Brooklyn Long Island alumni as we continue to bring you informative and impactful programming. We will see you all soon for our next virtual series, Cast Your Vote with a K, as we host our local councilman, Che and our New York State Senator, Kevin Parker, for a discussion on our local, state, and national politics and how it impacts our communities. Until then, stay safe. Take care of yourselves and each other. Good night.